Well, here we are, the 23rd of March. She's cold outside. She's about 0. Supposed to get down to -5 tonight. So I've had some questions about the little pot belly stove here. And even some comments about how inefficient these little stoves are. Before I comment on that, I'm going to say we're having a beautiful leftover chicken noodle soup. We cooked chicken the other day. We had the chicken and rice and stuff and vegetables. And we had the chicken noodle soup last night with some chicken in it. There was some leftover broth. We used the rest of the cooked noodles, and we're just enjoying that, along with some stale bread. We're doing good. There's Mama over there. Hi, Mama.
Hello.
Hello. There's Kitty. There's our wood stock for the night for the potbelly stove. Let me tell you something about these potbelly stoves. They're in action way before the 60s. So I remember growing up on the trap line, as is in my book, and to set people straight about the potbelly stoves. They're the most powerful heaters that you can possibly get. They're so intense. They actually banned them because they can, if you use them without common sense, they can overheat and melt down. All right. But at the age of 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, and on during my younger years on the trap line in Northern Ontario, I used these many, many times by myself at night. We would use these in our log cabins. Not the main home, not the main log home, but the log cabins. A cabin being that of a 12 by 12 by 12 by 12, blah, 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 square, like a big 12-foot. And here we're in at about an 8-foot section. Okay, so 8 by 8. And it gets so damn hot, you can't stand it. You have to open the vent, you have to open the doors. I remember going out to these little log cabins, little huts that we had. They would call them huts, but they were cabins. They were all log cabins built for trapping. You go out usually about a 12-kilometer trek or 12-mile trek, whatever, and then you spend the night there after getting your haul of furs from the Martin traps and that. We trapped for the Hudson's Bay Company, so which was the government. Anyways, so just to set the record straight, this little puppy here, this little potbelly stove could heat a house of 4,000 square feet, no problem. So we'll set that myth aside. Those who don't know what they're talking about need to understand how heat works. It all depends on what kind of wood you're using, what kind of piping you're using, what kind of ventilation you're using, and how you've insulated your house. In our log cabins, for instance, our log cabins had, between each log was chinked with moss. And I've heard stories from people that thought they knew what they were talking about, how the moss would freeze at night and blah, 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 blah. Kind of bullshit stories. Nobody that actually knows how to grow up on a trap line like I did. So what you would do with this little puppy here is you would load it up at night, you'd open up the air intake, you'd let it roar. This one doesn't have a damper on it. I decided not to put a damper on it because it doesn't go straight through the roof. It doesn't need a damper. It has a damper right there. And that's how you use this little gauge down here. See? So you'd open that up, let the air flow, get it heated enough, and then you shut it right off. And what happens then is it sits there and it smolders. It cannot go out. It's like coal. It will not go out. It will sit there and smolder and smolder and smolder. The bark and that on your green, wet logs, whatever, will smolder and smolder. When you're ready to tap into that resource of your heat at minus 40, for instance, you just open it up full bore and she will ignite. And then you just tone it right back down to about a quarter turn if you want it to continuously heat. But if you want it to smolder, you just turn it right off. So, for those of you that have said that the little potbelly stove is not adequate to heat any amount of space, I'm telling you right now, you're absolutely wrong. You know nothing about what you're talking about. These little potbelly stoves were used in the 40s, 50s, 60s. In fact, this is a 1940s design. And they were more than adequate to heat any trapper's cabin or log home. Then they came out with the cast iron heater stoves, were big fancy gadgets that required a different amount of attention. There's not a log stove that I couldn't attend and show you how to run. So, end of story. Little potbelly stove. Got the wood there. That's enough wood there, by the way, for about a week. It'll take 2 logs tonight, 2 big logs in that little stove. It ain't going to roar all night. We're going to just load those 2 logs in there, for instance, if it needs it. Right now, it is loaded. It is hot in here. It is so hot. It's like sitting on a sandy beach. So for those of you that don't know what you're talking about, please don't comment on something you don't know about. That little potbelly stove is enough to heat an army tent. Thank you very much. By the way, I am an experienced bushman, and I know what I'm talking about. So all you naysayers, fly a kite. See you in the next video. Thanks for liking, subscribing, and sharing. Next video coming up tomorrow, the 24th of March. We'll see what happens then. Night all. Bye. Bye-bye, Mommy. She's gobbling her food. I'm going to go back to my chicken noodle soup.